House of Representatives.
The House will be in order, and the prayer will be offered by our guest chaplain, Reverend Dr. Lindsay Curtis, Grace Baptist Church, Norwalk, Connecticut.
Let us pray. Dear Jehovah God, our divine company keeper, it is with hearts full of passion and unwavering faith that we gather today, seeking your divine protection and wisdom. Envelop us in your safety as we pursue our daily task, ever mindful of your promise to send angels to guard us. Please, dear God, guide this deliberative body in every decision, trusting in your steadfastness and in your presence as our beacon of truth. Walk beside us, gently moving our hearts unto your intended path. Enter our lives, Lord, filling us with your wisdom to see our choices through your vision. Wrap us in the warmth of your love as we place all hopes and faith in you. Grateful for your protection, we surrender our worries, aligning our steps and our thoughts to your will and your way. We pray in the mighty name of your Son. Amen.
The chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House the approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania, Ms. Dean.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Without objection, the gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Himes, is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And on this consequential day, when this body is likely to make law and debate critical things, it has already been a good and blessed day because our day was opened with a prayer by Dr. Reverend Lindsay Curtis. Dr. Curtis is well into his second decade leading as senior pastor Grace Baptist Church, a 129-year-old faith community in the center of my district, Norwalk, Connecticut. The church has thrived under Pastor Curtis's leadership, and I admire him as a friend, as a mentor, and as a spiritual guide, not just for his understanding of the Scripture, but for his deep commitment to ministry. Dr. Curtis, over the course of his career, has served as president of the Connecticut State Missionary Baptist Convention. He has served as chairman of the advisory board of directors of Norwalk Acts, which is a partnership of civic leaders. He has acted as the president of the Norwalk NAACP, commissioner of the Judicial Selection Commission, and when he sees a problem, he uses ministry to solve it. Just this summer, out of nowhere, he conjured a summer camp for 150 children in Norwalk, Connecticut, who might not otherwise have a way to constructively spend their days. I've always loved the quote attributed to St. Francis of Assisi, that quote familiar to so many of you, always preach the gospel, sometimes use words. Lindsay Curtis embodies that idea in his ministry, and his superb record is blemished perhaps only by my suspicion, and it is a suspicion, that he thinks that somehow the Chicago Bulls fit into the Trinity. But above all else, our God is a forgiving God, so I'm sure that that will not be a problem. Dr. Curtis, thank you so much for opening us up today. I yield back.
The chair will receive a message.
Mr. Speaker, message from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker,
Madam Secretary.
I have been directed by the Senate to inform the House that the Senate has passed with an amendment, H.R. 4, an act to rescind certain budget authority proposed to be rescinded in special messages transmitted to the Congress by the President on June 3, 2025, in accordance with Section 1012A of the Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of 1974, in which the concurrence of the House is requested.
The chair will entertain up to 5 further requests for 1-minute speeches on each side of the aisle. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize two outstanding students from West Shamokin Junior Senior High School, Abra Zielinski and Elena Gorley, who earned top national honors at the Future Business Leaders of America National Leadership Conference. FBLA is a nationwide student organization that prepares young people to become community-minded business leaders through career development and leadership opportunities. Their annual leadership conference brings together over 11,000 students from more than 2,000 schools nationwide to compete in career and leadership building events. Well, in Anaheim, California, Avril placed sixth in public speaking, and Elena placed seventh in career exploration. West Shamokin FBLA chapter, founded in the fall of 2023, has quickly made a name for itself and has proven that a small rural schools can leave a big mark on the national stage. Mr. Speaker, I applaud both Avril and Elena and the entire West Shamokin FBLA team for their leadership, hard work, and bright futures. They make their school, their community, their Commonwealth, and this Congressman very proud. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to recognize Pasquotank County Emergency Medical Services for earning the prestigious 2025 Best in Category Award for Health from the National Association of Counties. Out of 157 entries, Pasquotank County EMS was recognized as one of the best health programs in the country and the only winner from North Carolina. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Pasquotank County EMS, like many counties, faced a serious shortage of paramedics and emergency safety workers. In response, they developed an innovative tiered response system, allowing ambulances to quickly respond to emergencies while paramedics provide essential support when needed, improving their service, making it faster and more efficient. Pasquotank County EMS is a shining example of hard work, innovation, and dedication. Congratulations to each and every one on this remarkable honor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from East Texas seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House floor for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the Love Thy City event held in Tyler, Texas, a community-wide initiative that reminds us that service to our neighbors does not start in Washington, D.C. It starts in the heart and in the home, and it extends to every corner of this earth. Organized by local citizen leaders, churches, nonprofits, and volunteers of all ages, Love Thy City is a day of service to others rooted in the great command to love our neighbors. That's a principle that transcends politics and parties. It transcends race and gender and every other perceived difference between us. It is our shared responsibility to care for everyone around us, just as the Good Samaritan did, not because government would tell us to, but because the love of Christ propels us to. Whether it's cleaning up a park, helping a neighbor in need, or simply showing kindness to a stranger, Love Thy City challenges us to use our act of faith to lead by example and invest in our communities, not just with words, but with action. This is what makes East Texas strong: faith, service, and a deep love for God and for others. I'm proud to honor this effort today and to recognize all those who give their time to love their neighbor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our children are under attack. $6.8 billion in education funding, dollars appropriated by Democrats and Republicans. It's frozen. Funds that should have been available July the 1st. In Pennsylvania, that's $230 million. Resources, including summer programs and teacher training, hang in limbo. Abington School District, my alma mater, is missing more than $250,000. Some schools may be able to function, while the president's latest whims play out in court. But as is the case with most of his orders, Trump has stolen the most from those who have the least. Norristown School District, just 15 miles from my district of Abington, is owed 3 times as much, more than $750,000 in federal funds. This is not about government efficiency. It is about greed, incompetence, and cruelty. When Secretary McMahon testified before the Appropriations Committee, I asked her, "Why are you in this job?" Her response, "I want the best for my family." Not all families, her family. When Republicans tell us who they are, Mr. Speaker, we should believe them. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Kansas seek recognition?
I rise to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, in honor of the nation's 249th birthday, House Republicans delivered the largest tax cut in our nation's history for middle and working class families, strengthened the farm safety net, and voted to get our country back on track. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act gave a lifeline to the agriculture community by updating reference prices, expanding crop insurance, and saving millions of family farms from the death tax. The relief was long overdue, and we're grateful, but the work doesn't stop there. It is past time for Congress to pass a fiscally conservative 5-year farm bill, including support for agriculture research and development. We've seen the devastating impact disease outbreaks can have with the HPAI virus, and now we must continue to take steps to prevent the new world screwworm from reaching our borders. The Big First District is home to crown jewels of the animal health corridor, where world-renowned research happens, positioning the United States to focus on disease prevention rather than outbreak control after the fact. By investing in agriculture research, we strengthen our food supply chain and, in turn, our national security, all while providing the best and most effective return on taxpayer dollars. We cannot afford to put our food security at risk by not prioritizing adequate investments in animal health research when we pass the next iteration of the Farm Bill, and I would urge this body to get this right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Michigan seek recognition? The gentlewoman is recognized.
The Israeli government has deliberately blocked food, medicine, and fuel from entering Gaza. The entire population of Gaza is experiencing famine, and 500,000 Palestinians are facing catastrophic levels of starvation. At least 66 Palestinian children have already been starved to death. Maybe if my colleagues would close their eyes or pretend that they're not Palestinians, that they would care that Palestinians have been forced to eat grass, human beings, animal feed, while thousands of trucks carrying food sit blocked at the border. The Israeli government is using starvation as a weapon of war. Now the Israeli forces are deliberately shooting and killing starving Palestinians lined up for food, and the responses by the Israeli government doesn't add up. 875 murdered in 6 weeks alone. The so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, backed by the Israeli government and the Trump administration, is a deadly sham. The United Nations calls it a death trap. The Israeli soldiers have even admitted it themselves that they were ordered to deliberately shoot unarmed Palestinians, many of them children, calling it a killing field.
Gentleman's time has expired.
This is not a game, Mr. Speaker. These are human beings. And if colleagues need to close their eyes again and pretend they're not Palestinians to care, then maybe they should, and we would stop this madness and stop supporting the genocide in Gaza.
Gentlewoman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Arkansas seek recognition?
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to shed light on the broken permitting process which creates roadblocks to unleashing American innovation and development while costing more taxpayer dollars with basically nothing to show for the expenses. The Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023 attempted to change course and imposed a 2-year deadline and 150-page cap on environmental impact statements. However, the Council on Environmental Quality reports that 61% of environmental impact statements still take over 2 years to complete. The other 2 branches of government are taking actions to inject some regulatory common sense into the process. President Trump's Unleashing American Energy executive order directs federal agencies to confine NEPA analysis to applicable law. And in May, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously on narrowing the scope of NEPA. It's time for Congress to take a bipartisan, bicameral action to fix the broken permitting and regulatory laws so that America can thrive. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from the AFL-CIO and to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Today is so-called the culmination of Crypto Week. The AFL-CIO has sent a letter to every member saying that these bills are an attack on working families and they will score your vote on these issues. Vote no on both bills. This is what Trump had to say about crypto before he learned he could make money from it. The bills we have allow the president and the vice president to sponsor cryptos. That means they can print their electronic monopoly money. China is buying 300 million, and Abu Dhabi has agreed to buy $2 billion of Trump coin or Trump stablecoin. It allows for bailouts by the Fed. Jay Powell won't bail out Trump coin, but the next Fed chair will. It allows for the purchase with your U.S. tax dollars of Bitcoin or Trump coin. And the third bill says innovation is wonderful, except if the U.S. government does it. Vote no on all three bills.
Expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
That's unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today here on the House floor of the United States House of Representatives to recognize an extraordinary American and a dear personal friend, Mr. Roy Drinkard of Coleman, Alabama, who just celebrated his 105th birthday this past weekend on July the 12th. Born in 1920, Mr. Drinkard is a proud veteran of the Second World War and who served his country with courage and continued to inspire all those who know him. And he is the oldest living Marine in the United States of America. After the war, he returned to Alabama and built a legacy as a successful businessman, civic leader, and helped shape the growth and character of Coleman, Alabama, as well as the state. At the age of 105, Mr. Drinkard remains active in his business. He still serves on the Board of Trustees at Troy University, demonstrating that age is no barrier to leadership, to commitment, or to purpose. Mr. Speaker, Roy Drinkard is a living example of American grit and grace, and my wife Caroline and I are proud to call him our friend. I ask my colleagues to join me in wishing Mr. Drinkard a very happy 105th birthday and in thanking him for a lifetime of service to his community and to his nation. May God bless Roy Drinkard and his family, and may God bless the United States of America. I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor Luna Higby, the daughter of my friend Brian, back in Westchester County, New York. Luna is a delightful 6-year-old girl, but she has already endured bullying simply for looking different. Luna wears an eye patch and glasses to treat her amblyopia. Mistreatment by a few peers has made Luna want to reject her treatment. Disney Pixar has recently released the movie Ilio, about a boy who is wrestling with his insecurity and a longing to belong. Representation matters. Research shows that seeing someone in the media who mirrors your experiences boosts self-esteem, supports identity formation, and reduces stigma. Imagine how it might feel for Luna seeing a character who wears an eye patch, someone like her. Isn't that more likely to help keep her and her patch to feel proud, to feel seen? As someone who grew up with strabismus and experienced teasing firsthand, I know how much it can hurt. We must teach our children that differences are not deficits, but paths to empathy and connection. Mr. Speaker, I invite my colleagues to join me in sending Luna a message of inclusion. You belong, you're valued, and you matter to America. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the member from Arkansas, Mr. Hill, seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, good morning. Pursuant to House Resolution 580, I call up the bill H.R. 3633 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 134, H.R. 3633, a bill to provide for a system of regulation of offer and sale of digital commodities by the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission and for other purposes.
Pursuant to House Resolution 580, in lieu of the amendments in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committees on Agriculture and Financial Services printed in the bill, an amendment in the nature of a substitute consisting of the text of Rules Committee Print 119-6, modified by the amendment printed in Part B of House Report 119 through 199, is adopted, and the bill as amended is considered read. The bill shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided among and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Agriculture or their respective designees, and the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Financial Services or their respective designees. After 1 hour of debate, it shall be in order to consider the further amendment printed in Part C of House Report 119 through 199, if offered by the member designated in the report, which shall be considered read, shall be separately debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, and shall not be subject to a demand for a division of the question. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Thompson, the gentlewoman from Minnesota, Ms. Craig, the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Hill, and the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Waters, each will control 15 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arkansas.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material in this bill in the record.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I rise in strong support this morning of the Clarity Act. We've been here before, Mr. Speaker. Just last year, we passed landmark legislation, Fit 21, with an overwhelming bipartisan majority to apply strong federal standards to digital asset markets. For more than 5 years, our committee has heard from dozens and dozens of experts, held numerous roundtables and hearings with market participants of all sizes in all segments of the market to learn more about the emerging digital asset ecosystem. We learned about the value proposition and relevant risks associated with digital assets and the use of blockchain technology.
Supporting our nation's scientific research efforts. Each year, the current LC-130 fleet assists in critical missions in both Greenland and Antarctica pursuant to President Ronald Reagan's Presidential Memorandum 6646. However, our current LC-130H fleet is aging quickly, with some planes over 50 years old. Despite the great work of the 109th Airlift Wing in maintaining these planes, we must quickly recapitalize these planes to ensure the U.S. does not lose the critical capabilities provided by the LC-130 fleet. Before I conclude, I want to thank Bob Epp and Dennis Feeney from the New York National Guard's legislative team, General Stephen Slosik from the 109th Airlift Wing, General Michael Bank, the New York Air National Guard commander, and General Ray Shields, the New York Adjunct General, for their tireless efforts in advocating alongside with me for the LC-130 recapitalization. Last year, with the help of these individuals and Chairman Calvert, we were able to secure $29 million in the FY25 CR spend plan for the Department of Defense for these non-recurring engineering expenses. Rest assured, I will continue fighting to secure the additional funding in the final FY26 defense bill. Before I withdraw this amendment, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Calvert, I ask you to commit to working with me on the continued LC-130 recapitalization project, as you have so graciously in the past, and I yield my time to you.
I look forward to working with the gentlelady. We need a place, we need those aircraft to land them in Greenland.
Thank you. Thank you
That's
so
how
much. A mission of our president, of course. I want to say thank you, and I withdraw this amendment and yield back my time. Thank you so much, Mr.
The
Chairman.
gentlewoman yields. Seeing no other member seeking recognition, the amendment is withdrawn. It is now in order to consider amendment number 293, printed in Part A of House Report 119-199. For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 293, printed in Part A of House Report number 119-199, offered by Mr. Tiffany of Wisconsin.
Pursuant to House Resolution 580, the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Tiffany, and a member opposed will each control 5 minutes, and the chair recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin.
Mr. Chairman and Madam Speaker, my amendment would prohibit the Department of Defense from creating, procuring, or displaying any map which depicts Taiwan as a part of the territory of the People's Republic of China. The House approved a similar amendment as part of the State Department Appropriations Bill last Congress, and today's amendment would simply extend this policy to the Department of Defense. This is not a controversial amendment, since all of us know that Taiwan is not, nor has it ever been, part of Communist China, even for a single day. The people of Taiwan elect their own leaders, deploy their own armed forces, conduct their own foreign policy, and maintain their own trade agreements with other countries. By every measure, Taiwan is a sovereign, democratic, and independent nation, and any claims to the contrary are simply false. Since the 1970s, America's so-called One China policy has acknowledged Beijing's unsubstantiated claims over Taiwan. This is an antiquated and dishonest policy, and it is one that we should abandon. While my amendment will not end that misguided policy, it will at least require that the maps that we use reflect a simple reality. China is China, Taiwan is Taiwan. I ask for a yes vote on my Honest Maps amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Minnesota seek recognition?
Madam Chair, I rise in opposition to this amendment.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
I understand why the gentleman from Wisconsin is offering this, and I don't agree with the spirit in which it's being offered. But the Department of Defense and the administration of this Congress and myself, I've been pretty clear on my opposition of the unwelcome assertions of China's control over Taiwan. As a former social studies teacher, geography was part of what I would teach. I would never use in my classroom display a map showing rightly that China is in possession of Taiwan. But let me take the teaching just one step farther. This amendment would prevent the Department of Defense from buying or displaying a map that shows how China views itself in the world, how China is putting out mis- and disinformation on what they think the world should look like according to them. It would force the department, in my opinion, to put its head in the sand when at the military academies showing China's view of the world and why we have to work so hard to defeat that. So I hope we can all agree it's important to know what our allies and our adversaries are thinking, that we have adults at our military academies that can sort out the difference and see the differences in the maps. And as a geography teacher and a person who used to use maps, that is my only opposition to the gentleman's amendment. I know what he's getting at. I don't disagree with it, but sometimes you have to have what your enemy and how they view the world and what they're showing the world in juxtaposition for how we view the world and how Taiwan needs to remain independent. Congress and the department should focus our time and energy on being clear about China with respect for international boundaries and rule of law. So I just, as a geography teacher, I had to say something. And with that, I'm just going to yield back. I thank the chair.
The gentlelady yields back her time, and the gentleman from California is recognized. Oh, the gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
You're going to yield me time.
I will yield the chairman.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
I certainly rise in support of the amendment. The amendment prohibits the expenditure of funds to create, procure, or display any map that depicts Taiwan as part of the territory of the People's Republic of China. Let's be clear. Taiwan is not a part of the People's Republic of China. We should not appease the desires of the Communist Chinese leadership by pretending that it is. Our map should accurately reflect this reality. I urge my colleagues to support the amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields, and the gentleman from
I
Wisconsin reserves his time. He's the only one that controls time.
I would like to yield 1 minute to my friend from Arizona, Mr. Biggs.
The gentleman from Arizona is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Taiwan's a great friend of the United States, and it's a unique friend to Arizona. The CCP uses every tool it can, including maps, to undermine truth and assert illegitimate claims over sovereign territory. Congress should not fund anything that supports the CCP's disinformation efforts, and now is the time for strategic clarity with rising bellicosity coming from the CCP. We cannot allow for authoritarian regimes to dictate how our government communicates facts, and if we truly stand for freedom, sovereignty, and truth, then we must also stand with Taiwan, and this is one way to do so, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back his time, and the gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
I'll just close by saying I appreciate the consistency by the gentle lady from Minnesota, because she said the same thing a couple years ago. But this body was excluded back in 1979 when the One China policy was implemented by President Carter, and it's up to this body to make sure it claims its rightful place in foreign policy when we have an issue like this before us. And she talks about the spirit of this amendment. I would say this amendment is issued in the spirit of freedom. And that is all that Taiwan is looking for, is to defend its freedom, and it should be able to do it. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Wisconsin. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. That underlining really helps. Thanks. The chair understands that amendment number 303 will not be offered. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
I move that the committee do now rise.
The question is on the motion that the committee rise. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Accordingly, the committee rises. This is the awkward.
Right now. Madam Chairwoman.
Madam Speaker, the Committee on the Whole House on the State of the Union, having had under consideration H.R. 4016, directs me to report that it has come to no resolution thereon.
The Chair of the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union reports that the committee has had under consideration H.R. 4016 and has come to no resolution thereon. Proceedings will resume on questions previously postponed. Votes will be taken in the following order: passage of H.R. 3633, passage of Senate 1582, and passage of H.R. 1919. The first electronic vote will be conducted as a 15-minute vote. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, remaining electronic votes will be conducted as 5-minute votes. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote on passage of H.R. 3633, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 134, H.R. 3633, a bill to provide for a system of regulation of the offer and sale of digital commodities by the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission and for other purposes.
The question is on the passage of the bill. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote.
So the first of 3 roll call votes in this series. Members here voting on a bill aiming to establish a regulatory framework for digital assets and clarity jurisdiction
over the digital asset market between two independent federal government agencies. This is a 15-minute vote. Also, part of the fabric of the issues the administration is dealing with recently is the Jeffrey Epstein files and how to address the outcry to release the files. Jake Sherman of Punchbowl News has just posted this. Speaker Johnson and his leadership team are discussing offering an Epstein-related resolution to try to quell the furor of members of the House Rules Committee. The resolution would almost certainly be non-binding. Dems keep offering Epstein-related amendments in the Rules Committee, release the files, etc. Republicans on the Rules Committee are pissed they're being asked to oppose these amendments, and GOP members of Rules want political cover. Rules was supposed to meet this morning. They still haven't even scheduled a hearing on rescissions, all because of this row over Epstein and the House GOP's handling of it. Of course, we'll be watching for how this is dealt with and report on it as we get information. As members vote here, we'll show you floor debate on this legislation from earlier today.
Morning. Pursuant to House Resolution 580, I call up the bill H.R. 3633 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar number 134, H.R. 3633, a bill to provide for a system of regulation of offer and sale of digital commodities by the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission and for other purposes.
Pursuant to House Resolution 580, in lieu of the amendments in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committees on Agriculture and Financial Services printed in the bill, an amendment in the nature of a substitute consisting of the text of Rules Committee Print 119-6, modified by the amendment printed in Part B of House Report 119 through 199, is adopted, and the bill as amended is considered read. The bill shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided among and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Agriculture or their respective designees, and the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Financial Services or their respective designees. After 1 hour of debate, it shall be in order to consider the further amendment printed in Part C of House Report 119 through 199, if offered by the member designated in the report, which shall be considered read, shall be separately debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, and shall not be subject to a demand for a division of the question. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Thompson, the gentlewoman from Minnesota, Ms. Craig, the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Hill, and the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Waters, each will control 15 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arkansas.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material in this bill in the record.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I rise in strong support this morning of the Clarity Act. We've been here before, Mr. Speaker. Just last year, we passed landmark legislation, Fit 21, with an overwhelming bipartisan majority to apply strong federal standards to digital asset markets. For more than 5 years, our committee has heard from dozens and dozens of experts, held numerous roundtables and hearings with market participants of all sizes in all segments of the market to learn more about the emerging digital asset ecosystem. We learned about the value proposition and relevant risks associated with digital assets and the use of blockchain technology. We've heard time and time again from market participants and regulators about the need for clear regulatory guardrails. We've talked about the need to fill those regulatory gaps that have left millions participating in crypto markets vulnerable. In fact, Mr. Speaker, both President Biden in his Executive Order 14067 and President Trump in his Executive Order 14178 identified those market regulatory gaps, asking Congress to act to fill those gaps. And we certainly witnessed in 2022 consumer harm when the Financial Services Committee heard unprecedented testimony from an expert called in to clean up the failed digital asset crypto firm FTX and the mess it left behind. In his words, never had he seen such an utter failure in corporate controls. In its wake, then Chairwoman Waters wisely stated, "We need legislative action to ensure that digital assets entities cannot operate in the shadows outside of robust federal oversight and clear rules of the road." If we needed action then, we certainly need it now, and we risk history repeating itself, and that's why we gather today on the House floor. After years of bipartisan work, numerous iterations, this bill would apply rigorous rules to digital asset firms, prohibiting commingling of customer funds and requiring capital, record-keeping, and conflict of interest mitigation standards. Importantly, the bill recognizes that decentralized finance, or DeFi developers, do not take custody of user assets, nor do they control user assets. Therefore, we should not treat them in the same way that we treat centralized actors who do have custody, who do have control over assets. It's important to note that in an Agriculture Committee hearing, the former General Counsel of FTX USA himself testified, quote, "Had we the regulatory structure provided for in clarity applied to FTX, close quote, the story would," and he goes on to say, "would be almost certainly have been a much different ending." Let's ensure that we learn from the past, Mr. Speaker. The digital asset ecosystem is evolving at a remarkable pace, enabling real-time settlement of peer-to-peer transactions, initiating a renaissance in applied cryptography, laying the groundwork for the next generation of the use of the Internet. The United States has long had the most innovative financial and technology sectors and the deepest, most liquid capital markets. But while other jurisdictions are building frameworks for the future of finance to be on-chain and digitally native, our great country, with those great characteristics, is lagging. For too long, our digital asset regime has been the worst of both worlds. Regulation by enforcement, which has pushed good actors to leave the United States, and the regulatory gaps that I talked about identified in both President Biden and President Trump's executive orders that have left consumers unprotected from the bad actors. Now, today, we have an opportunity to reverse course and establish the United States as the global hub for digital innovation. To do so, we must close the regulatory gaps with common sense rules. The Clarity Act does just that. By leveraging the expertise of our two market regulators, the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodity Future Trading Commission, to ensure wrap-around oversight of digital asset markets from initial sales, raising capital, to daily trading, it provides clarity for banks also engaging in this ecosystem. And as we said in the last Congress, Mr. Speaker, these rules need to be fit for purpose for the digital ecosystem. Now, all of us on this House floor know that the status quo is simply unacceptable. We all know American consumers and innovators deserve this clarity, deserve better, deserve rules of the road. The choice before us is whether to lead in the financial markets of the future or watch the next FTX fail while we're left saying, once again, well, we've been here before. I urge all my colleagues to join me on both sides of the aisle and support the Clarity Act. Let's fill these regulatory gaps with the proper federal oversight. Let's create a competitive digital ecosystem. I support this bill. I urge my colleagues to, and I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
Mr. Chair, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Crypto Week has been going so well, hasn't it? Mr. Speaker, That's because bailing out billionaires is hard work. I look how hard Republicans worked to strip health care from 17 million Americans, shutter rural hospitals, and take food assistance from 12 million people just to hand the richest 1% of Americans a tax break they don't need. No one should be surprised that the Republicans' next order of business is a $1 billion handout to the president himself. In just 6 months, President Trump has enriched himself and his family to the tune of $1.2 billion, and that's just the beginning. President Trump used to call crypto a scam in 2021. Trump said, and I quote, "Bitcoin, it just seems like a scam. I don't like it because it's another currency competing against the dollar," end quote. Melania was actually first to get involved in the crypto ecosystem. In January 2022, she announced an auction of her non-fungible token, or NFT, collection. Trump then followed suit in December 2022, launching his own NFT collection, ditching his concerns about crypto because he saw it as a way to pad his pockets. Now, during the campaign trail, Trump ramped up his crypto involvement. In September 2024, he and his family launched World Liberty Financial, a crypto trading platform. So days before the inauguration, Trump launched his meme coin, which he later used to offer access to the White House to the highest bidder, foreign or domestic. But his family's crypto empire hasn't stopped there. World Liberty Financial launched a stablecoin called USD1. And shortly after that, the Abu Dhabi-backed investment firm MDX bought $2 billion worth of Trump's coin to make an investment in Binance. Trump's family has also launched a Bitcoin mining operation and multiple crypto exchange traded funds, or ETFs. All of this comes at the same time that the Trump administration has taken away the independence of the financial regulators like the Securities and Exchange Commission. He issued Executive Order 14255, which now requires all rules written by the financial regulators to be reviewed and approved by, guess what? The White House Budget Office. This means this bill would hand over to the president the ability to write the rules he wants to advance his crypto operations. Not only that, but under the Trump administration, the SEC has said that meme coins, stable coins, and Bitcoins mining all do not fall under their oversight. Can you imagine that? Do these assets sound familiar? Oh, yes, they do, because these are all ventures that Trump and his family are pursuing. Now, with no oversight by Wall Street's comp on the beat, that is the SEC. Surely, each of you can see how this is a blatant conflict of interest, right? Well, Democrats do. It's why I introduced the Stop Trump and Crypto Act to ban the president, vice president, and all the members of Congress from crypto corruption. If we do not ban elected officials, including the president or vice president, from this crypto corruption in H.R. 3633, each of us will be complicit. And yet, even if we included language to stop the crypto con, this bill, which should be called the Calamity Act, is bad public policy. Plain and simple. The bill would lead to increased investor harm, plant the seeds for the next financial crisis and endanger our national security. Just last week, the former chairman of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission warned that this bill would allow traditional companies like Apple or Google to evade securities laws. They could walk away from the disclosure, anti-fraud, liability, and corporate governance protections that investors have relied on for 90 years. And the bill blocks our state regulators from protecting seniors against fraud in crypto. Additionally, the Calamity Act does not address illicit finance and other crimes commonly seen in the crypto space. It does not provide nearly enough direction to agencies, which would be required to match the level of financial crimes and non-compliance seen in the industry. Nor does it provide sufficient funds for federal agencies to examine and enforce these laws. For all of these reasons, I strongly, strongly oppose this bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to include in the record the CBO estimate for this bill.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, I want to yield 2 minutes to an essential leader in our committee, the chairman of our committee that handles financial technology, digital assets, and artificial intelligence. The gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Stahl, recognized for 2 minutes.
The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank Chairman Hill for all of his hard work on that, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of the Clarity Act. I think two things are clear. First, the digital asset and blockchain technology are leading the next wave of financial innovation, and we need to make sure that that innovation is occurring here in the United States of America. Second, under the previous administration, the United States failed to enact a regulatory framework that's aligned with the realities of the technology and adequately protects consumers. Today, the House has an opportunity to meaningfully improve the status quo that for too long has been marred by uncertainty and regulatory enforcement. The Clarity Act establishes a workable, forward-looking framework. The Clarity Act provides and ensures the markets operate with transparency, accountability, and strong consumer protections. Today, our laws leave digital asset developers guessing which regulator in what jurisdiction, and what even compliance looks like. It's not bad for business. It's bad for consumers and bad for U.S. competitiveness. Without action, we'll continue to see innovation move overseas to jurisdictions that are providing the legal clarity that we, thus far in the United States, have failed to deliver. Mr. Speaker, what we want is innovation and developing not occurring in boardrooms and law firms in the United States. We want them occurring in basements and dorm rooms. Ensuring the United States leads the Web3 revolution isn't a partisan issue, it's an American issue. The Clarity Act legislates in a thoughtful way in a rapidly evolving space. The Clarity Act protects consumers and fosters innovation. Today we can lead not by accident, but by design. Let's send a message that America intends to lead in the golden age of digital assets. Mr. Speaker, I support the Clarity Act and encourage my colleagues to vote yes. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
I now yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Lynch, who is also the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Digital Assets, Financial Technology, and Artificial Intelligence.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized for 2 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the gentlelady from California for your leadership on this issue. I rise in strong opposition to H.R. 3633, the so-called Clarity Act. I believe this misguided legislation will have devastating impacts on our financial stability, national security, and investor protections. While my Republican friends claim that this bill will regulate the crypto market structure, in reality, it eviscerates the long-standing history of investor protections that have made our markets the envy of the world. Most importantly, this bill, this push for crypto will not end well for the U.S. taxpayer. This bill will lead to the next financial crisis, and the largest crypto donors who wrote this bill will walk away unharmed. because the worst aspect of this bill is that Republicans have repeatedly refused to include a single amendment preventing a federal taxpayer bailout of the crypto industry. That's what this bill does. Additionally, this bill includes zero provisions to prevent the president, who has a $620 million conflict of interest, from continuing his ability to accept emoluments from foreign governments like Abu Dhabi, and I urge my colleagues to vote no and protect the American taxpayer. I yield back.
The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to yield 2 minutes to our majority whip, who has been an absolute essential, early, focused policymaker in the digital asset space. Mr. Emmer of Minnesota for 2 minutes, please.
The gentleman from Minnesota is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The United States stands at the forefront of the next digital renaissance, a transformative shift towards a decentralized peer-to-peer digital economy. For many years, innovators and investors were forced to operate in a legal gray zone while agencies jostled for regulatory superiority over the digital asset ecosystem, leading blockchain developers to pack up and move abroad. The Clarity Act fixes this by creating regulatory guardrails tailored to the unique attributes of blockchain technology while giving users and developers the confidence to engage and innovate in this ecosystem. Gone are the days of arbitrary enforcement actions and regulatory turf wars that only hindered the development of this groundbreaking technology and drove capital overseas. This bill gives market participants the confidence to build, invest, and grow right here in the United States of America. We are proud to have the Securities Clarity Act included in this legislation. This provision provides market certainty for innovators and clear jurisdictional boundaries for regulators. Subsequently, elements of the Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act were included, clarifying once and for all that digital asset developers and service providers who do not custody consumer funds are not considered money transmitters. Importantly, the Clarity Act will help further decentralize our financial system so that Americans can forego intermediaries and transact directly with each other. Having this choice will fundamentally transform the digital economy and unlock new opportunities for innovators, investors, and consumers around the globe. I want to thank Chairman Hill and Chairman Thompson for their leadership and for working with us to include our two bills in the Clarity Act. The United States has an opportunity to lead and deliver on President Trump's promise to make America the crypto capital of the world. We cannot and will not fail. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Arkansas reserves. The gentlewoman from California.
I now yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Caston, who is also the vice-ranking member of the Financial Services Committee.
The gentleman from Illinois is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, the only thing you need to know about the Clarity Act is that it is designed to destroy U.S. capital markets. U.S. capital markets are the envy of the world because investors like putting their money in them. They are the envy of the world because we provide robust investor protections when people put their money in them, in part through the Securities and Exchange Commission. And yet the Clarity Act would allow companies to raise up to $200 million without any disclosure, without any transparency, just by tokenizing their security. But let's be clear, putting a security on the blockchain doesn't make investors safe. It might make money for the crypto industry. I know you all like that. It might make it possible for the companies to temporarily raise more money from dumb investors because they don't get that protection. But if we stop protecting investors, why would investors put their money in the stock market? They will abandon the U.S. to go to places with a better risk reward. I understand we got a lot of fraud and grift in the White House. I understand you are a big fan of fraud and grift in the White House, but we don't need any more. Let's protect Americans' hard-earned savings. Let's protect markets and not just make crypto bros richer. I urge a resounding hell no, and I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Michigan, the vice chairman of our full committee, Mr. Heisinger, who's been a long-time advocate for reform in the digital markets.
The gentleman from Michigan is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate that. From the chair, the digital asset ecosystem currently operates in a fragmented regulatory environment that lends itself to significant challenges for both businesses and, more importantly, investors. The ambiguity and the ambiguity in classifying a digital asset either as a security or as a commodity has led to confusion, legal uncertainty, and ultimately consumer harm. American innovation is a critical element of job creation and economic opportunity here in the United States. Congress must look to preserve this competitive advantage and not let it leave our shores. By passing a comprehensive market structure framework, responsible actors will now have greater certainty and consumers greater protection from bad actors. This bill establishes a regulatory framework for digital assets that aligns with our existing financial markets while accounting for the unique characteristics of digital assets. Mr. Speaker, our markets are the envy of the world. American innovation is a critical element of job creation and economic opportunity here in the United States. Congress must not cede its responsibility. I urge all of my colleagues to support this important legislation and yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Arkansas reserves. The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
I now yield 1 minute and 15 seconds to the gentleman from California, Mr. Sherman, who is also the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Capital Markets.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute and 15 seconds.
I submitted many amendments to rules, as did other Democrats. They made only one in order. I will not be offering it because in the absence of the other amendments, it's really not useful. This bill is an attack on working families, which is why the AFL-CIO says no, and they are scoring it. This bill prohibits Congress members from sponsoring cryptocurrencies because of the obvious corruption and conflict of interest, but it allows the president to create electronic monopoly money. And who's buying? Abu Dhabi is buying $2 billion of Trump stablecoin, while the Chinese interests behind TikTok are buying $300 billion worth of Trump coin. And that's just what we know about. There's a lot we don't know about because cryptocurrency literally means hidden money. It allows for bailouts under Section 13.3 of the Federal Reserve Act. Jay Powell won't do it, but the next guy will. And Congress won't stop them because crypto spends more in super PACs than any other industry by far, 5 times more than the combination of big oil and big pharma. It allows for the purchase of Bitcoin and Trump coin, and Trump has announced that he's going to do just that with our tax dollars going into his crypto. And finally, this creates the perfect financial tool for drug dealers and for tax evaders.
I yield to the gentleman an additional 15 seconds.
The gentleman is recognized for 15 more seconds.
It creates the perfect financial tool for drug dealers and tax evaders, because every time a billionaire cheats on his taxes, a member of the Freedom Caucus earns his wings. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Ohio, the chairman of our Subcommittee on National Security and a longtime policy advocate for reform in our digital markets. Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, Chairman. The ability to move payments or digital tokens that represent other assets, person to person without a third party, any intermediary, across any space, digitally, at the speed of light, is part of the reason this industry was created. So what do those tokens represent? Either securities, commodities, real-world assets. We've needed a bright line test since this market began to decide who regulates them. I introduced the first piece of legislation on this back in 2018 called the Token Taxonomy Act. Think of the harm that could have been prevented if we had that bright line test all this time. And the other essential component is self-custody, the ability to control your own assets. You can't go person to person if you have to go through an intermediary without a permission. So it does that. It does just what we need to do, just like cash. We finally have market structure in place with this bill. I hope the Senate delivers the same structure soon, and we get the certainty the markets need. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Arkansas reserves. The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
I now yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Velasquez, who is also the ranking member of the Small Business Committee.
Gentlewoman from New York is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong opposition to this bill. It is ironic we are debating a bill called the Clarity Act, when it offers no clarity on one of the biggest issues in crypto, the blatant conflicts of interest inside our own government. Since returning to office, President Trump has turned the presidency into a crypto cash machine. It is now estimated that crypto makes up the majority of Donald Trump's net worth. Foreign investors, some under federal investigation, are pouring millions into these ventures, buying access, influence, and favorable treatment. So I ask, what are we doing here? With this bill, not only are we continuing to allow President Trump to issue his cryptocurrency, we are allowing him and his cronies to be in charge of the regulators overseeing that venture and compromising the stability of capital markets in our country.
Time has expired.
I urge my colleagues to vote no, and I yield back.
Gentlewoman's time has expired. The gentlewoman from California reserves. The gentleman from
Mr.
Arkansas
Speaker, may I
is
inquire
recognized.
how much time I have remaining, please?
Gentleman has 2.5 minutes remaining.
Good. Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Flood, the chair of our Housing and Insurance Subcommittee.
The gentleman from Nebraska is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. It's been a longer wait than expected, but I am excited that the Clarity Act has finally made it to the House floor for debate. The Clarity Act is not just about digital assets like Bitcoin. This bill will usher in a new age of blockchain innovation that will go well beyond the tokens that we know well today. Chris Dixon's book, titled Read, Write, Own, talks about a future where blockchain technology enables a new generation of the internet he terms Web 3.0. Technology like NFTs can be used as tickets to events, identity verification tools, and serve other real-world uses that will change our digital economy. I urge my colleagues to see the bigger picture. The vote today is not just about cryptocurrency as we know it. It's about enabling the next generation of innovation enabled by blockchain. This is a good bipartisan product that builds on the years of work from Chairman Hill and Subcommittee Chairman Stile, the Financial Services Committee, and the Ag Committee. I urge my colleagues to support the bill and yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Arkansas reserves. The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
And now yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Foster, who is also the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Financial Institutions.
Gentleman from Illinois is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to the Clarity Act, which claims to bring digital assets under a regulatory umbrella, but fails in two major areas. First, because it has no KYC, know your customer requirements for self-hosted wallets, it allows anonymous trading on DeFi exchanges and the dark web, which means there is no way to prevent wash trading, front-running, corruption, ransomware, extortion and kidnapping payoffs, and all the parade of horribles that unregulated crypto has unleashed upon the world. This legislation simply applies a patina of regulation while codifying loopholes that leave large parts of the industry, including the President's own meme coin schemes, completely unregulated. Secondly, the Clarity Act also lacks basic investor protection present in the securities laws. For example, firms are not required to serve the best interests of their investors or to separate critical market functions and many other basic protections. Now, I am not ideologically opposed to crypto, and both of these flaws are fixable, but in clarity, they have not been fixed, and so I oppose this bill and urge my colleagues to vote no. Yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentlewoman from California reserves. The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Fitzgerald.
The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of the Bipartisan Clarity Act, common sense legislation that finally gives digital asset markets the regulatory certainty they need to grow responsibly right here in the United States. For too long, innovators have been stuck in a regulatory gray zone, caught between agencies and overlapping authority, and subject to enforcement instead of clear rules. The uncertainty has driven jobs, investment, and innovation offshore, while leaving American consumers exposed. The Clarity Act fixes this. It establishes clear, functional rules for digital assets, drawing a bright line between the SEC and the CFTC, and creating strong, enforceable protections for consumers. It ensures that digital assets developers and consumers facing firm play by the rules disclosing who owns what, segregating customer funds, and avoiding conflicts of interest. It is long overdue, and I commend Chairman for bringing this bill to the floor today.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Arkansas reserves. The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
Thank you very much. I now yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Massachusetts. She's an unapologetic leader for justice. She's from Massachusetts, Ms. Presley.
The gentlewoman from Massachusetts is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Ranking Member Waters. Mr. Speaker, I rise in vigorous opposition to the Clarity Act. This bill gives a green light to self-enriching crypto schemes where officials at the highest levels of power, including in the White House, have generated hundreds of billions of dollars in personal profit. We need legislation that stops financial abuse, not encourages it, especially during a time when the SEC has dropped enforcement actions against major crypto firms and undermined investor safety. Across our country, millions of working families are battling rising costs. Our elders are targeted by financial scams, and investors are trying to recover from volatile markets. But Republicans are ignoring all of that to prioritize the crypto industry's wish list. To be clear, the people deserve crypto legislation that is fair, transparent, and accountable, not a bill that opens the floodgates to conflicts of interest and weakens investor protections. The Clarity Act fails that test. Republicans need some clarity, all right, moral and legislative. I agree with Ranking Member Waters. This is really the Calamity Act, and I urge my colleagues to oppose this bill.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. The gentlewoman from California has reserved. The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself the remainder of my time.
The gentleman is recognized.
We're here today, Mr. Speaker, because of the exceptional work by the House Financial Services Committee over a 5-year period, including under the leadership of then-Chair Maxine Waters and our former Chairman Patrick McHenry, gathering feedback from experts, looking at market participants, analyzing the markets, talking to regulators, and that's how we got the Clarity Act on the floor today that is built on the backs of that hard work. This chamber has passed a similar bill in the last Congress with exceedingly strong bipartisan support. Since then, the Clarity Act has only been further refined and strengthened in terms of both legal certainty and consumer protection. This bill, Mr. Speaker, as we've demonstrated over that period of time, would prevent consumer harm like FTX. I support the bill. I urge my colleagues to support the bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentlewoman from California.
Mr. Speaker, may I inquire how much time I have remaining?
The gentlewoman has 2 minutes remaining.
I now yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Kamlager Dove.
Gentlewoman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, deregulatory loopholes without addressing core issues like transparency, fraud prevention, or equity in access. The SEC doesn't even like this bill. We need comprehensive, thoughtful regulation, not rushed frameworks driven by the people who will gain the most that ignore the voices of everyday investors, builders, and communities left behind. Crypto deserves rules that are smart, fair, and future-facing. The Clarity Act is none of these things, because if it was, Republicans would have had the votes much earlier. I urge my colleagues to vote no. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields back. The gentlewoman from
Thank
California
you very
is recognized.
much. Mr. Chair, I yield myself the balance of the time.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Let me reiterate. A vote for H.R. 3633 is a vote to give Trump the pen to write the rules that would put more money in his family's pockets. A vote for H.R. 3633 is a vote for increased investor harm. A vote for H.R. 3633 is a vote to plant the seeds for the next financial crisis. And a vote for H.R. 3633 is a vote to endanger our national security. That is why I am voting no on H.R. 3633, the Calamity Act, and I urge all members Don't give your vote to Trump to own crypto. Don't give your vote to the vice president. They're the only two elected officials in this bill who can own crypto businesses. I want to see all of the cabinet, the president, the vice president, and all members of Congress unable to own crypto business. I urge all members to vote no, no, no on this bill.
Gentlewoman's time has expired.
And the nays are 134. The bill is passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business and the vote on passage of Senate 1582, on which the yeas and nays are ordered, the clerk will report the title of the bill.
Senate 1582, an act to provide for the regulation of payment stablecoins and for other purposes.
The question is on passage of the bill. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is 5-minute vote.
And we have a vote now on passage of a measure that would create a federal regulatory framework for payment stablecoins in the crypto market. The bill would establish specific rules on stablecoin issuer eligibility, oversight, and national security compliance. The Senate passed the bill last month with bipartisan support. Should the House go on to approve this bill, it'll head to the White House for President Trump's signature. Just a note, we understand the House is expected to go into recess after the next vote as they prepare to debate the Senate-approved $9 billion spending cuts bill today. The House Rules Committee has yet to meet on the measure, which needs to happen before it can come to the House floor. Earlier, White House Budget Director Russell Vought answered questions from reporters on the spending cuts package and President Trump's reversal in his thinking that he'd like to fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell.
The Biden administration added all sorts of executive requirements to the BEAD program, the Rural Broadband Internet Program. Curious if the Trump administration will use that as a template to add new executive requirements for some of the leftover money from the Inflation Reduction Act for some of these green projects.
We're going through a process with regard to the BEAD funding. I refer you to Commerce on all the details there, and we're going to make sure we put the president's stamp on that funding, and any funding that goes out, we're always looking for opportunities on that front.
Any update on the rescission package in the House and share?
No, we're looking forward to the House blessing the Senate package. I'm not worried about it. We need to get it done and get it across the finish line, but very historic moment, the return of using rescissions, getting the muscle memory for that back into the system. We've talked about defunding Corporation for Public Broadcasting for decades. President Trump's the first one to be able to do it. He had, a lot of enthusiasm for this package, and we're just thrilled that we made it through that critical juncture last night.
Is the president satisfied with PEPFAR funding after the Senate versions not being?
The president has always been supportive of life-saving treatment, and we continue to put forward proposals to make sure PEPFAR is more geared towards actual life-saving treatments. We had good reasons to put the rescission up that we did, but you have to make adjustments along the way. They maintained a $9 billion package. Hard to get upset about that.
Your reaction to the discussion about what the file from Powell and commented on before, but the president saying yesterday it's highly unlikely that he would fire him, but also bringing up the issue with GOP lawmakers. What's your take on this latest fact?
Well, I think the president was pretty clear yesterday. He's unlikely to fire the chairman, but he has substantial concerns with regard to how he's managed the Fed, not just from an interest rate policy, but with regard to cost overruns, and that's something I'm in particular looking at in conjunction with the National Capital Planning that has a number of new fantastic members. We're trying to get a site visit right now and get over there. I've been around it as I've gone up to the Martin building quite a few times, but I want to see it. I want to walk around the building with the other members of the commission and get a sense for why is the overrun happening, the inconsistencies between the plan that was submitted to the commission originally, the statements that the chairman made before the Financial Services Committee, how those reflect, and it's either misleading to Congress or it needs to go back through the Planning Commission.
On the subject of cost, but a different topic, Cabinet Secretary is heading to Alcatraz today in California. Critics have said that reopening that prison would be very expensive and inefficient. In terms of cost, how does the administration justify that?
Well, I think one of the features of our fiscal plans is that we have a plan to get to balance, to make savings where we want to make savings, and then where there are areas where we feel like we need to spend money. That could be one. There's obviously things in the national security perspective, shipbuilding, aircraft carriers. We obviously think we need additional resources for border that we just secured. So this notion that, somehow if you're a fiscally responsible administration, that means you have to take the same view to every dollar of spending, we just reject the notion. And so it doesn't make answering those kind of questions particularly hard.
Russ, back on Jay Powell, do you think there are any signs of fraud in the renovation project? Are there early signs of fraud at this point or not yet?
Look, we want to go over there. We want to see what's going on. Obviously, the cost overrun is very concerning, and the extent to which we don't believe that just having the Inspector General do a review is something that is going to be enough. So we want to have sit down with those that are in charge of the project and get a brief from them and see where we're at.
Is that investigation just a pretext of firepower?
No, the president's a builder. He has concerns with an overrun of this nature. I mean, it's just not an overrun of a normal building. We're talking about a building that's approaching the largest amount of spending that's ever been done on a building before. And we want to know why, and we want to get an answer, some clarity as to the features with regard to this large S. And it has implications for the country's fiscal situation. The Fed's been mismanaged for a number of years. They're no longer providing a profit that comes back to the Treasury in the form of remittances. And so this is something that there are implications across the board, and we're going to continue to get our handle on it. Sorry, what's that?
HUD is actually building a new building.
Have you been to HUD? Ever? HUD is, if you had to work at HUD today, you would not want to work at HUD. Like, it's a bad building. It falls, like, portions of the building fall on people. It needs a new building. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that career staff and the people who work at HUD have a building that reflects the hard work and public service that they're providing. Again, we're not, this isn't a statement that says we're against renovations. Renovations need to occur, but the notion that moving the people out of HUD, and it's literally depressing when you go there, and moving them to a place where they can have a physical presence that they can do their job effectively, that's not the same thing as a $700 million cost overrun.
Director, sorry if I missed this.
Look at her and then you.
Okay. Hi, I just wanted to talk a bit about, on the subject of buildings, the Grand Canyon Lodge that has been burnt to the ground in Grand Canyon. How much money do you allocate to situations like that, or does it only come from the state? They're doing a major investigation. 80 buildings were lost. All the staff lost their accommodation and absolutely everything. How quickly do you move now through FEMA, and will you put federal funding to that emergency?
We'll take a very close look at it and go through our normal FEMA process, but I don't have anything for you right now on that.
Thank you, Director. Thurgood and Bonnie are both headed to Alcatraz today, and that is anticipated, if this was to be rebuilt like the President has requested, that's anticipated to cost around $13 billion. How do you square that with the cuts that the administration has been making across the entire federal government?
Well, again, we don't have a cost estimate for that yet, but I would just refer you to what I said earlier. The administration puts forward a comprehensive fiscal strategy. We have cuts that we send to Congress, and we have increases. And in the net, we reduce the deficit and reduce debt. But that doesn't mean that if something costs money, we're going to treat every dollar of spending or cut the same way. The president doesn't believe that. There are certain things as a federal government we need to spend money on, and the president has talked about restoring that. I'm glad that the secretaries are out there to get a handle on that.
So do you believe that it would be cost effective, these renovations of Alcatraz?
We're going to go through the process like we do everything else, see what it costs, do it as efficiently as possible, and this is, I think, the start of that process on which their site visit is.
Hi, Director. Do you have evidence of Fed Chair Jerome Powell overseeing fraud or directing any lavish spending as part of this construction that would justify him being fired?
We're going through the process right now. The facts are very clear, and he will attest to the facts. It's overrun by $700 million. Where we want to get a sense for is the reasons why. We want to get a sense for the difference between his statements and the plans that were submitted to the National Planning Commission, and then we'll see where we are. You might have missed it. We're trying to get a site visit. Myself, the National Planning Commission members, some senators that are concerned, Bill Pulte, the fantastic FHFA director. We want to go over there, take a tour, and have some really good conversations with the Fed on this.
They disputed the idea of any terrace gardens or VIP dining room.
And that conflicts with their own policy plans that were submitted to the commission. In my letter, you'll see the page numbers for those.
Cost overruns, which happen on a lot of building projects in this city and in many other cities. How do you get from there to fraud? Fraud is an accusation of committing a crime, of stealing the taxpayers' money. How do you get from the cost overrun to the crime accusation?
We have a building that is being horribly mismanaged, and there is a ton of oversight that's already going on. We've brought an added layer with our own commissioners that are now on the job, and we're going to see where this takes us. But this is not something the American people should expect from their government, and it comes at the real-world implication of us not having the Fed running a largesse program that doesn't allow us to bring in the necessary resources to the Treasury.
One more thing on Bill Pulte. The president posted on Truth Social the other day that he had gotten information about Senator Schiff's mortgages from Fannie Mac's criminal investigation department. Is Bill Pulte giving the president information on his political adversaries' mortgages?
I refer you to Bill. He's doing a great job. He's been very out in front on this issue and helping expose it. We're happy to come alongside, and I'll just refer you to FHFA on that.
Mr. Vaughn, you weren't able to get those cuts to that far this time around. Are there going to be any further resistance packages to try and get those cuts, or any other packages?
With regard to rescissions, we wanted to see how this vote was going to go. It was really important for it to be successful. We're on the 1 yard line in the House. We need to get across that 1 yard line. The critical vote was in the Senate. We are very, very pleased with the passage of the Senate bill. Our enthusiasm, the president's enthusiasm to send additional packages. We were watching closely about that first vote, and I think it's likely you'll see an additional package. We're not here to announce anything on this front, but in terms of seeing whether this was a useful effort that was not a waste of time, it certainly has satisfied that threshold, and we'll see where we go from here. All right, thanks.
Members here voting on passage of a measure creating a federal regulatory framework for payment stablecoins in the crypto market, establishing specific rules on stablecoin issuer eligibility, oversight, and national security compliance. Here's a look, while we have some time, what members had to say about the legislation earlier on the floor.
myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of the Senate Genius Act, and I thank my colleague and longtime friend, Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee, for his leadership in ushering this bipartisan bill through the United States Senate. Around the world, payment systems are undergoing an evolution. New technologies are modernizing legacy infrastructure and unlocking innovative solutions to improve efficiency, reduce costs, and expand access to financial services. Members of this House Financial Services Committee have long recognized the promise of payment stablecoins and have worked since 2022 to establish a legislative framework. Last Congress, under the leadership of former Chairman Patrick McHenry of North Carolina, the committee passed the Clarity for Payment Stablecoins Act of 2023. This bill provided for bank and non-bank pathways for issuers to obtain regulatory approval, preserve state-level oversight, and set standards for reserve composition, audits, and sound risk management. When the 119th Congress started in January, we picked up this effort. In close coordination with the Senate Banking Committee, and our base legislation and our legislative work over the past 2 years has laid that foundation for the progress made in both the House and the Senate. Today we have an opportunity to send stablecoin legislation to President Trump's desk. This is a multi-Congress priority item, and it ensures American competitiveness, strong guardrails for our consumers. We should not, Mr. Speaker, squander that opportunity. This priority has been agreed to by both President Biden with his executive order and President Trump in his executive order 14178. Through multiple versions of stablecoin legislation, the House and Senate have shared ideas and crafted workable approaches, and our joint efforts before us helped enhance the legislation on the floor this morning. I want to recognize the hard work of my friends in the Senate to get the core fundamentals of what payment stablecoin legislation demand. I also want to recognize the diligence and thoughtful work of my colleagues here in the House, including the chairman of our Digital Assets, Financial Technology, and Artificial Subcommittee, Brian Stile, who championed and worked through our committee through markup in successfully designing, writing, and passing in committee the STABLE Act. I thank my House colleagues for their principled approach to key policies that guided and distinguished our effort, particularly around state regime oversight, the reserve composition, the anti-money laundering and territorial integrity issues around stablecoins, and finally the corporate structure of issuers. Furthermore, it's my firmly held belief that only by enacting payment stablecoin legislation and, Mr. Speaker, I repeat, and comprehensive market structure reform in this Congress, like we just debated a few minutes ago, the Clarity Act, only by passing both will this Congress fully usher in the era of digital finance and ensure that consumers are protected whenever they engage with digital assets. I urge all my colleagues to join me in supporting this bill and sending it forward to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue for President Trump to sign into law, and I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentlelady from California is recognized.
I yield myself such time as I may consume. 2 weeks ago, Republicans boasted about how they would provide billionaires with tax cuts they don't need by stripping health care from 17 million Americans, shuttering hospitals across the country, and starving 12 million families, including millions of children. These billionaires are the same individuals who proudly gave millions of dollars to President Trump's campaign, literally bought votes during the last election, and even sponsored Stalinist military parades to celebrate the president's birthday. No one should be surprised that these same Republicans' next order of business is to validate, legitimize, and endorse the Trump family's corruption and efforts to sell the White House to the highest bidder. SD 1582, the so-called Genius Act, establishes a woefully deficient federal framework for dollar-denominated payment stablecoins. In the United States, stablecoins are a form of digitized private money. Unlike other types of crypto, these coins claim to always maintain their value, often one coin for $1. Nevertheless, that promise of stability is precisely what causes stablecoins to be the subject to bank-like runs where the public rushes to sell their stablecoins at the first whiff of instability, making a bit of bad news into a full-blown financial crisis. It was for this reason that when I was chairwoman of the committee, I sought to create a federal framework to oversee these stablecoins and ensure that consumers are protected. I worked with the Biden administration and former Republican Chairman Patrick Henry to craft legislation. We achieved that goal, and I posted that legislation earlier this year. We wanted to create a strong federal system to oversee this type of crypto market that protected consumers, our national security, and financial stability. Unfortunately, the election of Donald Trump ended those bipartisan efforts and brought a significant new challenge to stablecoins. The Trump family's brazen corruption using crypto to sell access in exchange for official acts. And it just so happens that those stablecoins are one of the main vehicles Trump is using to make his corrupt crypto billions. The Trump family, crypto company, World Liberty Financial, launched a stablecoin called USD1 in April. And shortly after that, the Abu Dhabi-backed investment from MGX brought $2 billion of Trump's coin to make an investment in Binance, a company that had been under investigation for numerous legal violations. Trump and his family will make tens of millions of dollars just on that transaction alone, from the interest earnings alone. That's Abu Dhabi's money. More concerningly, by passing this bill, Congress will be telling the world that Congress is okay with corruption, okay with foreign companies buying influence, okay with criminals buying Trump coins to seek pardons and beneficial treatment. Surely, each of you can see how this is blatant conflict of interest, right? Well, Democrats and the rest of America does as well. It is why I introduced the Stop Trump in Crypto Act to ban the president, vice president, and members of Congress from crypto corruption. If we do not ban elected officials in S 1582, including the president or vice president, from crypto corruption, each of us will be complicit. And let me be clear on this point, because there's been a lot of misinformation. This bill has a policy statement that elected officials, like members of Congress and senators, as well as government officials, cannot issue their own, like members of Congress and senators, as well as government officials, cannot issue their own stablecoins. But do you know who Republicans did not ban? Now get this straight. The president and the vice president, they're the only elected officials that can have a crypto business. Why are the Republicans protecting the president to make billions and billions more dollars? Don't just take my word for it. Earlier this week,
The ayes are 308 and the nays are 122. The bill is passed without objection. A motion to reconsider is laid to the table. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote on passage of H.R. 1919, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 66, H.R. 1919, a bill to amend the Federal Reserve Act to prohibit the Federal Reserve banks from offering certain products or services directly to an individual, to prohibit the use of central bank digital currency for monetary policy and for other purposes.
The question is on passage of the bill. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
And so the House now voting on legislation that will prohibit the Federal Reserve from issuing a central bank digital currency to individuals or from using similar digital assets to implement the Fed's monetary policy. This is a 5-minute vote, and while members vote here, we'll show you an interview with on the cryptocurrency bills being voted on today.
Phone to talk about Crypto Week in the U.S. House is Jasper Goodman, who covers economics policy at Politico. Thanks for being with us. You wrote Wednesday night, when the House finally advanced the 3 crypto bills, that it came after a group of Republican hardliners dropped their opposition to the effort following a chaotic day of turnabouts and negotiations with Republican leaders. What were the day-long negotiations about? How did they get resolved?
Well, thanks for having me. This saga really began on Tuesday afternoon when House Republicans put on the floor of the lower chamber a rule to begin debate on the crypto bills, a slate of 3 crypto bills that Republicans are hoping to pass this week, along with a fiscal year 26 defense spending measure. And this was expected, I think, by most observers to be relatively smooth sailing. They would pass this procedural step and move on to consideration of those bills. But out of nowhere, at least from where we were sitting, a group of Republican rebels took down the rule that would allow the House to begin considering this legislation. And that led to a chaotic day and a half of negotiations between the House Freedom Caucus members, the hard right members, who voted against this initial rule on Tuesday, President Trump, who got involved both late Tuesday night and late Wednesday night, and House Republican leaders who were trying to mediate this situation. The objection from the hardliners ostensibly was that they wanted 2 of the crypto bills that were being taken up this week by House Republicans to be linked together to ensure that a bill that would ban a central bank digital currency would have a viable path forward in the Senate. And conservatives have long been concerned that a CBDC, which is effectively a government-issued digital dollar, doesn't currently exist in the U.S. and would need congressional authorization in order to exist. But there have long been concerns that a CBDC would stifle private sector innovation and also lead to privacy invasions. And so the hardliners were pushing to merge this CBDC ban bill in with one of the other crypto bills in order to force the Senate to take it up. But that would be highly unlikely because most Democrats don't support a CBDC ban, and that means that it likely wouldn't have a path to 60 votes in the Senate. So basically what happened here is late Tuesday night, this group of Republican hardliners went to the White House, met with Donald Trump, and they struck a supposed deal to add the CBDC language to one of the other crypto bills being considered this week called the Clarity Act, which is a sweeping market structure overhaul led by the chair of the House Financial Services Committee, French Hill. But there was one problem with this. The leaders of the House Financial Services and Agriculture Committees, which crafted these crypto bills, were not on board with this deal that the Freedom Caucus members struck with the president. So we got back to the House floor on Wednesday for another vote on this rule, and the hardliners were preparing to vote yes on the rule, but then the senior members of the Financial Services and Agriculture Committee withheld their votes. And this led House Republican leaders to have to leave this rule vote open for more than 9 hours on the House floor yesterday as Republican leaders tried to mediate a solution between the hardliners and the leaders of the Financial Services and Agriculture Committees. And just briefly, the reason that they opposed this proposal to attach CBDC language to the Clarity Act is that it would mean that Democrats wouldn't vote for the Clarity Act when they put it on the floor. And they want to send a signal to the Senate that there is a lot of bipartisan support for their Clarity bill, the market structure overhaul, because they want to make law on this year. So they were categorically opposed to anything that would add a CBDC-related poison pill to that bill. This led to the protracted standoff. And it was eventually resolved late on Wednesday night when House Republican leaders agreed to add language that would ban a central bank digital currency to the National Defense Authorization Act when the House takes that up later this year. Of course, that'll create a whole nother struggle, but that's a problem for tomorrow. And for today, they came to this deal with the hardliners to unfreeze the House floor, and they eventually passed this rule late on Wednesday night after what eventually became the longest vote in the history of the House.
Well, as you can see, just a few votes remain to be tallied. The House is expected, we understand, to go into recess as members prepare to debate the Senate-approved $9 billion spending cuts bill today. The House Rules Committee has yet to meet on that measure, which needs to happen before it can come to the floor today in the House. Here's a look at more floor debate on cryptocurrency legislation being considered today.
I'll rise and yield myself such time as I may consume in support of H.R. 1919. This bill has been before us before in this House chamber. We debated it in the last Congress. It's had the outstanding leadership, support, and advocacy by our majority whip here in the House, Mr. Tom Emmer of Minnesota, and I rise in strong support. At stake is a
10, the bill is passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the Chair.
And as we told you, the House now in recess after passing 3 bills related to cryptocurrency and debating the defense spending package for fiscal year 2026. Members will return after the House Rules Committee approves debate rules for the $9 billion spending cuts package that passed the Senate earlier on Thursday morning. Republicans aim to approve the Senate revised version by the Friday deadline. When members return, you can follow our live coverage here on C-SPAN.
Looking to contact your members of Congress?